Hello everybody, I'm hitting you today with an Xbox 360 Fallout 3 tech retrospective. Kind of niche curiosity, but I was playing through it, and considering the age of the console, it was just kind of interesting to look back on it, from the 2024 perspective. Or I guess whenever you're watching this, but I'm sure everybody knows about the freaking crazy rigs that people be running, absolute wildman. But back to the 360, it only had 512 megabytes of RAM to share between the GPU and the actual system, or the game, or whatever you want to call it, blah blah blah. It honestly produces a pretty good result even in 2024. I played this on a 55-inch 4K display, or not display, a TV. Silly goose me. But it looked pretty good. Sitting back on the couch and everything, the sharpness was never really an issue on it. It always looked pretty clear and everything. You can kind of see here that, like, especially if you're looking at it closer, like I'm looking at it on my laptop right now, and it is, you can definitely see some aliasing and stuff like that. And obviously I'm not doing like a crazy in-depth review like Digital Foundry would or something like that, but you can definitely see the textures are a little off and stuff like that. But when you're playing it at a distance and whatnot, you really don't notice that. The frame rate itself is, it targets 30 FPS, which, you can say whatever about that, but honestly, a game like Fallout 3, I just, like, the combat being what it is, never did I really feel like, the game performance was holding it back so much as the game engine and the general jankiness of everything. To be clear, it's still nice to play it at 60 FPS, but the only real reason I would say you would play it, for example, on an actual Xbox 360, if you actually still have one, or maybe on another console that supports it on backwards compatible, is just to kind of avoid the bugs that come from running a game as old as Fallout 3 and as janky as Fallout 3 on newer operating systems such as, Windows 11, Windows 10, which I guess isn't even really modern anymore. Makes me feel old, and I'm not. But whatever. The game really only suffers from like when you interact with something, not so much like in the game world itself, but when the biggest drops you'll feel are usually from like opening up the Pip-Boy. So like if you're in combat and you open up the Pip-Boy, it's gonna stutter a little bit. It's gonna have some issues. And that is a bit jarring, but again, I never really had a death or anything like that where I was like, oh, that was for sure the game. That's unbelievable. Nah, none of that. But something that is worthy of mention would be the load times on the Xbox 360. And to be fair, some of this could also be the fact that I am playing on an old Xbox 360. But it takes a long time to load. I'll put up a comparison here. Look at this. This is okay, so I'll put early game first and I'll put the late game second. You can see a side by side here, and the difference is stark, to say the least. Like, the further you get into the game just keeps getting worse and worse and worse in terms of performance. Typically, whenever you're early game, like, it's super stable, load times are good and whatnot, but by the time you hit, like, level 15, maybe level 20, it starts getting a little janky, and especially once you start getting to DLC. So, personally, the DLC just crashed, like, constantly. The amount of times I had a crash in the base game was pretty few and far between. However, in the actual like DLC, like I don't have any clips of the alien or the mothership Zeta or whatever the quest line is, but it crashed like maybe over a dozen times, and it was, it started to kind of piss me the fuck off. And I didn't end up enjoying that DLC all that much, particularly because of those crashes. I honestly just kind of wanted to plow through it because it was like less amount of time I can spend, going through this and crashing, losing some progress, saving constantly. And by this point, the performance had started to suffer. So like every time you like access the hard drive, essentially, you're gonna have a bit of a pause. So like the save or an autosave or loading into a new area, it just made it feel like such a drag. And maybe I'm saying that mainly because it would crash and then I'd have to load up the entire game, and that area was particularly annoying. The aliens there are ridiculously tough. You have to like, this ain't about Mothership Zeta. I'll just stop there. But like, it crashed a lot, and I do have a clip of the actual last time I have played Fallout 3, and that was when I was gonna try and start the next DLC. It was the Brotherhood of Outcasts, guys. And you know what? Wouldn't luck have it, it crashed the minute I walked into the goddamn building. You can't believe it until you see it. There it is. Beautiful. But anyway, if you're looking to just play like the base game, like say you have it on backwards compatibility or whatever, it's still a real worthwhile way to play it. And I imagine it does, like the load times, I imagine on like a newer console, even like the Xbox One or something like that, with a hard drive that isn't, in my console's case, like 16 years old, you'd probably fare a bit better. However, in this case, it does suffer from age. But if you're still playing on Xbox 360, like overall, the performance and the experience is still fine. Like, if you're not really bothering with the DLCs, it's gonna run fine. You're gonna have a fun time playing it. You're not going to really be missing anything. Sure, you could mod the crap out of it. You could make it look like, oh, look at this, sweet bejesus, it's, 4K and all that. But to be honest with you, every time I go to play Fallout 3 on PC, it's always had some sort of bug. And I do have an Intel Arc graphics card, so that could be part of it. And I did have a failing i7 rendering my rig completely unusable until I can get a new one. That could have also contributed. But this point still stands that you're likely going to encounter some issues. I've talked to some friends and they were like, yeah, it kind of just was bugging the heck out on me after I installed all my graphics mods. And it was like, well, you did install the game download size worth of mods added on, I imagine you might run into a few hiccups, especially on Windows 11. But as it stands, it's fun to play. I'll wrap it up there pretty much. There's not a whole lot else to say, like it runs fine. It's aged pretty well, I'd say. And, it doesn't look that bad. It like Fallout 3 and New Vegas, they never looked good. Apart from an entire remaster, like uplifting everything, it's not going to look that much better. Like you're gonna get what you're gonna get on these older Bethesda games, and for what it is, it's pretty solid. And playing on an Xbox 360, that's still an excellent way to play it, as it turns out. Well, I'll see you guys later. Y'all take her easy, and I'll see you when I'm talking at you.